Welcome everybody to Bite the Bullet. I'm your host, Jay Reese, and thank you so much for tuning in, whether you're seeing it completely live or you just happen to see it when it recirculates through the algorithm. We appreciate you so much for your views, your likes, and your shares. But let me go ahead and tell you about today's guest. She is so awesome. Me and her have only officially known each other for maybe about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, but yo, she is so fire. She's such an awesome person. And you ever meet someone and you just know you're gonna mesh and you're gonna have a great conversation? Well, Trish is that person. She is just so awesome. I can't say enough. So let me go ahead and give her a proper intro by reading off her card. All right. Trish Nancoo works every day towards self-development and awareness using life lessons. She realized that through this journey, there are many of us, both men and women, who are seeking the same thing. But society today can be so tainted that trying to be honest in our own skin is sometimes a task. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely can relate to that one. What Trish needed was honesty, bluntness, and people to just be real with her. That is why she started the podcast Strongtalk, to be real, have strong, honest conversations, and show others that it's okay to be vulnerable. Trish has 3 children, and her main focus in life right now is to be the best example to them so they can be better human beings. So let's go ahead and welcome Trish Nancoo. Hello, Trish. How are you today?
I'm gonna hire you as my hype man.
Yo,
My hype man.
hey, you know what's funny though, because through this show, I have refound my childhood dreams and ambitions. Because when I was younger, Public Enemy was one of my favorite rap groups, right? But here's the funny thing though, it was because of Flavor Flav. It really was. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the lyrics, I love the music, but it was because I saw what he did. He was such an entertainer.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, that's what I want to. I want to be like that. Not necessarily look like him or be him, but I wanted to entertain and be like,
you wanted to exude that energy. That's what you wanted to do. Yeah.
exactly, 100%. But thank you for that compliment. I appreciate it. And I will be your hype man any day, Trish. I promise you, any day. So let's go ahead and start talking about your podcast, Strongtalk.
Mm-hmm.
Please tell the audience, share with the audience why you started it and why it's so important for you.
So, Strongtalk is an outlet for me. And it's also years and years of being I was in a relationship for 17 years, which was not a very good relationship. It produced 3 beautiful kids, but I think I stayed in that relationship for reasons of selfishness and reasons of, of shame and pride. And as most people, we tend to stay in relationships that are not good for us because, of society, of maybe material things. And when I left that relationship, trying to find counselors or coaches, I find that there was just so much fluff. And then, you go on social media and I'm seeing friends and people who I know, and, their pictures, they have the perfect life. They're going on vacations and they're doing all this. But I know that their life is shit behind closed doors because, they've either spoken to me or I've seen things or heard things or whatever the case may be. Right. And I realized that I was just longing for people to just be real with me, just be straight with me. And when I started talking to people and being blunt, like just maybe friends and stuff like that, they appreciated me showing my vulnerability and my faults. And I said to myself, I started listening to podcasts and stuff like that. And as a woman and the growth that I've been through as a woman, I realized that a lot of the issues in my past relationships wasn't just because of my partner's infidelity, wasn't just because of the abuse, but I also looked at my contribution and I also looked at his mental health, which I never looked at because men do have issues. Surprise, surprise.
No, men are perfect. What do you mean? We make no mistakes. We're perfect.
But when I look at it, a lot of women who have been wronged in relationships Like, you tend to hear the phrase, "Oh, all men are dogs,"
Mm-hmm.
all men are this. But when I step back and I started working on me, and I'm looking at the whole picture, I'm like, Trish, you were so wrong here. You were so
Mm-hmm.
wrong there. But you don't really hear people admitting that, and you don't really hear people talking about that. And when I started doing the show and I
Mm-hmm.
started being blunt, like, I know some family and some friends were like, "What the hell are you doing? You're talking your business." Because Caribbean people don't like to talk. They're like, "You're just chatting your business."
Uh-huh.
But then I had people saying to me, "You know what? Hearing you talk like that and just be real really helped me to dig deeper within myself, because what you were saying about how you felt is how I felt in this relationship, or how I'm feeling right now, and I can't admit it to anyone." And that meant more to me than people tell me I'm chatting my business, is to actually be reaching people out there and having people think to themselves, should I be in this? Do I want to spend the rest of my life like this? Where am I
Mm-hmm.
going wrong?
Yeah.
So that's why I started Strong Talk.
So I'm curious if I could take you back to maybe the first episode when you really said, you know what, I'm going to share my business. I'm going to be blunt.
Hmm.
What was the thought process? Because I know a lot of us don't want to share our personal business. A lot of us want to put on that facade of everything's perfect out to people that don't know us. And you seem to have flipped that and was like, you know what, I'm going to share my business
Hmm.
and share it to people that you don't know. So how was the thought process there?
You know what? It was just realizing that my problems went deeper than just my relationship with my ex. My
Okay.
problems went back to my childhood. It went back to I have major mommy and daddy issues. My parents never took care of me. And it was
Okay.
and I've always had, we were discussing, I've always had this mindset. I don't want to be anything like my parents. I want to be different. I want to be nothing like them. And it was after I left my ex and started just discovering myself and looking at myself and looking at the mistakes that I've made and the lessons I've learned. Um, I came to realize that I want to embody who my parents are, but be a better version of them. And talking about it, and even meeting people in my life, like, I don't know one person, Jay, who doesn't have mommy and daddy issues, but they hide it, or they're ashamed to talk about it. They don't even they go through their whole life and they don't even explain it to their parents, or talk to their parents about it, or even acknowledge it. And then they start relationships with partners, and those issues get carried over into that relationship, and then they have kids, and it carries over into their kids, and then the cycle just continues. So that when I thought about my own kids, and I saw my daughter, who's 22, and my son exhibiting some of my traits and some of the things that I really and personally didn't want them to have,
Mm-hmm.
I said, you know what, this is something I need to put out there. Um, and I spoke to my kids about it. This is how I started. I spoke to my kids about it. I said, I'm going to do a podcast. I'm going to be talking about things that happened in the past. I'm going to be talking about, myself and my growth. And they're the only people that I needed to get the okay from.
So I'm curious, what was your kids' response? So at the time when you started this, how old were your kids, if I may ask?
My daughter was probably about 20, and my son was my middle son was 16, and my youngest
Mhm.
was probably about 9. You know what? Their response is, "Mom, you do you."
Okay, I love that.
And that's and they're the only people's opinion that matter to me,
Hmm.
because this is their dad that I would be talking about.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'll be using them as references. um but I've always had a relationship with my kids where I'm very transparent. I wouldn't talk
Hmm.
about growing our business, but if they ask me something, or something's happening or whatever, we talk. I'm very open. Like, I call a penis a penis. Like, I don't sugarcoat stuff with them. And because I've had that relationship with them and I spoke to them about it, I said, this is what I think I need and what I want to do. My daughter was really for it, because she's like, Mom, because she's a music producer. She does music.
Right.
She's like, Mom,
Hmm.
there's so much fakeness out there, and you're probably one of the realest person that I know. You do you.
Yeah. So everything you're saying right now is encouraging me to be more transparent in everything,
Yeah.
every aspect of my life, because I know there are sides of us that we keep sheltered or we protect, right? But I'm also curious that you said a moment ago that you also talk about their father. So
Mhm.
did you have a conversation with him saying, "Hey, this is what I'm going to do," or was it he just kind of like you just did it?
I just did it because
Okay.
at that point in time in my life,
Hmm.
we don't we didn't have a relationship
Okay, makes sense.
where we can talk. And that's always been the problem in our relationship, communication. And it was always hard for me because any exes that I've had or anyone in my life, I always have a relationship with. He's the
Hmm.
only person in my life, and the father of my three here my Trini accent was coming out. I was going to say three children.
It's all good.
Yeah, my three children.
Uh-huh.
And it's hard to, you spend so many years with a person, regardless of how tumultuous it was. You want to get to a point where you're having a conversation. But when I started the podcast, we weren't. But I don't say his name, and I'm respective of certain things. But our relationship right now, we talk.
Hmm.
We're not, I mean, besties, but we talk now. So it has been a growth process for over the last couple of years.
Um, we'll definitely get into how you're able to grow that relationship because, like you said, it wasn't the healthiest relationship to begin with, but now it seems like you guys are.
Mhm.
But I'm wondering. I know for me, having a show and being a person that's on social media and share a lot of my business, it's seemingly difficult for me to share stories about other people. So I know a lot of times, as you're saying, I'll change names or I might change a little bit of the details just to keep anonymity
Mhm.
for other people. Do you find that challenging, and how do you do it?
Hmm. Honestly, Jay,
Hmm.
a lot of people, everyone in my life knows I'm doing this podcast.
Right.
So if you don't want me to talk about you, don't do me wrong.
I love it. I love it. I love it because that's real though. So like, so like, case in point, I had a awesome time hanging with my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law over the weekend, right? And we were all having conversations, like adults do. When adults get around each other, you have conversations, and not everybody's going to agree. And me and my brother-in-law, we don't agree on everything. Like, we're not arguing, but we just don't agree, right? So I had the option of bringing that conversation up during one of my Mr. Positivity videos and something else. But I changed the type of conversation. I didn't mention who I was talking to, it just brought it up. So I know there are other times where something might be more personal to the person that I would like to speak about.
Hmm.
It still resonates with me, and it's still about me, but it's also about that other person.
For sure, yeah.
So with you bringing up your ex-boyfriend and maybe even other people in your life that do you wrong, I don't think you ever intentionally try to make someone look bad. I'm saying you probably paint the facts, right? So
And I talk about where I went wrong too. Or
I see.
I talk because it's not, as long as it involves someone else, there's always
Hmm.
two sides. There's their side, my side, and what actually really happens. Because
Mm,
the way that you're going to interpret a
yeah.
situation, and how I'm going to interpret it, is completely different sometimes to how it really happens. Is because
Hmm.
our mind makes us see things and believe things
Right.
differently, right?
Hmm.
But I'm not trying to put anyone under the bus or anything. These
Hmm.
are life lessons, and these are things that not just I go through, you go through, or someone else is going
Hmm.
through. And as I said, I'm not gonna fluff things up.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna I'm gonna be real because that's what we lack in society right
Hmm.
now, right? And
Uh-huh.
um any man that comes into my life, like, I mean, they know I'm doing this podcast.
Hmm.
I'm on social media. So, I mean, tell me if you don't want me to talk about certain things. If you don't want me to talk about certain, but you know what? If I had a really good experience because you're a really great person, or I've had a bad experience, I'm going to share it. You know,
Okay.
I haven't had anyone in my life yet who's
Mm-hmm.
never seen this. They might come and tell me, "Yo, don't talk about that. Don't mention this. Don't mention this. Don't say this." Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of no zones, are there any no zones that you're not willing to talk about? Because I feel like almost everybody has something that they keep to themselves. But I could be wrong.
I don't think so. I think I've spoken. I think I no. Well, we'll see. I don't think there's anything that I haven't
Right.
touched. Yeah, no.
Okay, that's fair enough because I
Yeah.
love how authentic and how genuine you are in your openness. And a moment ago, you said that you don't throw anybody under the bus and you're willing to share what you do wrong as
Mhm,
well and your side of the story. So
mhm,
I know for me growing up, when I was a kid, I got used to sharing what I did when I got in trouble because I learned early that if I go ahead and say what I did, that tends to lessen the punishment, right? So
mhm,
now as an adult, I still tend to do the same thing where I'm willing to be open about what I did.
mhm.
But I find that a lot of people aren't like that. Was
And
that something you always had or did you grow into that? Or does that make sense?
no, it makes sense. So I would say as an adult, I think a lot of the times why we okay, so I'll talk for me personally,
Okay.
why we don't like to talk about where we went wrong or where we're going wrong or what's wrong in
Mhm.
our life. It's one, I was brought up in a family where we sweep things under the rug.
Okay.
So, it's about family
Hmm.
pride and how we look in society, right?
Yeah.
The second thing is that um, you always taught, what happens in your home happens in your home. You don't go and discuss it, right? Like
Yeah.
you keep it in,
Yeah. You don't tell house business.
right? And then this the other thing is that I don't think it's just a Caribbean thing because I know Europeans and even North America is the same thing. It's like you have this facade that you paint for people, that you have this
Mhm.
relationship and you are this person and you have this house and you have this car and you have to maintain that.
Hmm.
So if you really show who you really are behind those closed doors, people are going to be surprised, right? They're going to say, "Oh, he really hits her. That blue
Right.
is really." So it's. I think it has a lot to do with how we see ourselves in society and how society pains certain things, right? And
Mhm.
and how we're brought up and the things that we learn. But I think once you start, it took me 38 years to actually see that this is bullshit because
Mhm.
every day that you get up is a blessing. Every morning,
Absolutely.
every day you get up is a blessing. So why am I taking this blessing and not living it to the full potential and living to my full happiness and being who I'm supposed to be, even outside the door and inside the door? Why am I and that just puts a load on you. Like honestly, just being real and being outspoken and being who I am has taken so much off of me,
Mhm.
right? Because I don't have to paint this picture that I am always this happy person, that, I have this beautiful, I don't have a beautiful house anymore from since I left him.
Mhm.
And people used to look down on me because, oh, you're in your 40s now, you have kids. Why are you living in a basement apartment? Well, you know what?
Mhm.
I don't want to be house poor. I want to be able to still give my kids,
Oh, house poor. How many people out there are house poor?
right?
Man.
I don't want to be
Right?
house poor. I don't want to be car poor.
Mhm.
Driving a Benz and I can't buy my kids what they want or put them in tutoring or whatever it is. You know what?
Mhm.
That's because my it's not as when you have kids, it's about them and
Right.
then, it's about making their life better.
Mhm.
And I realized that, okay, I went years without buying new clothes. And you would have never known that because I took care of my shit. But
Mhm.
I had people talked about it. Oh, Trish, didn't you wear that like last week? And your point is, I washed it, I have a laundry. What's your point, right?
Right?
So it's getting past that mindset that people are continuously judging me, and trust me, I haven't gotten past that
Mhm.
because I don't know if you look at my podcast and look at certain things, I
Mhm.
don't do videos, and it's because I haven't come out that comfort zone yet because I think people were still judging me, but I'm slowly getting there. I'm
Mhm.
slowly getting to that point where you know what? I don't care what my past colleagues think about me. They probably thought that, my mouth was too big or I was too blunt, but they don't know what was going on behind closed doors. And
Mhm.
I was putting on this facade. Now that I'm trying to come out in my own, I'm trying to show people that, you know what, because you leave your house doesn't mean that you need to be someone else outside. Be yourself.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I believe there is a saying that originated. I'm not sure if it was Japan or China, but there's a belief that everybody wears three masks:
Yeah.
your professional mask, your family mask, and then the mask for yourself. Right. So again, I'm really impressed and admire how well you're able to just
Yeah,
speak your truth and be your authentic self.
I appreciate it.
What advice would you give anyone out there who is looking to step out of their comfort zone? Because even as you said, your podcast isn't video, and I thank you so much for doing this because it is. So thank you for that. But
Mhm.
I tend to wonder, what advice would you have to give others who are looking to come out of their comfort zones?
Advice. You know, Jay, every day it's a struggle. Every day it's going, it's not going to be easy. And this is something that I tell my kids, and I always have to remind myself, the things that are good for you is
Hmm.
really the hardest things to do,
I
right?
like that.
Um, things, because you know you always hear things that comes easy to you in life, or some they go easy. Things that comes easy, they go easy. And I realized that to come out of my comfort zone, I literally have to look at myself and like myself, like who I am. Not love, but look at me and, I like you. Because I'll tell you, growing up, like even in my 20s, in my teens and stuff, I never used to wear a bathing. I never wore bathing suit because I
Hmm.
was so conscious about myself. I never liked under my eyes is hereditary from my dad. I had so many issues about myself that I kept back. But as I come into myself, I turned 43 just a couple of days ago, and I looked at myself, and you know what? I said to myself, Trish, your exterior may not be perfect, but I like who you are on the inside, because I've had so many people, like my kid's dad and
Hmm.
my ex-boyfriend, they've done me wrong, even my own parents, but I still have so much love for them. I don't have any hate in my heart. And
All
I
right.
know that that makes a good person. And then when I look at myself and I see that I'm a good person, I'm like, you know what? You need to, if you're not comfortable being around yourself and you don't like yourself, why do I expect other people to do that for me?
100%. And I'm curious, before we leave this subject, you spoke of you still have love for your parents, you still have love for your ex-boyfriend, and you learn to love or like yourself. So, what was that process like? And how did you get to that point of being able to say, even though they done me wrong, I didn't like that behavior, I still need to love them, and I definitely need to like and love myself?
And, so that's where I started. When I started learning about myself and looking back to where my issues began, I'll take, for example, my ex.
Okay.
My ex and I could never see eye to eye. We constantly fought, argued. We couldn't have a conversation. There was a point in time where, even when he starts talking to me, I get irritated. Like I don't even want to hear his voice, right?
Okay.
And we stayed in that for 17 years.
Mhm.
And when I started learning about me and learning about my past and learning about what triggered me and my relationship issues, I started looking at him and looking at what could have traumatized him in his past. Where why arguments started wrong, why he would say, I need to be quiet sometimes, or
Mm.
why his perceptions on certain ideas were why it was. And I'm like, okay, he can't be faulted for something because that's how he was brought up. I
Okay.
started trying to understand things from the other person's perspective instead of just from my perspective. And I think a lot of the times when we're in relationships, we always
Mhm.
think, oh, what did you do to me? You did this to me. Why did you do this to me? You wrong me. But we don't look at where all of that is coming from. We just look at
Mhm.
us. And I think once we start looking at other people and start trying to not analyze them, but try to understand them,
Mhm.
we actually see where we went wrong. Because I realized that, you know what? I didn't understand that man.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really doing my duty as what I should have done as a woman as well, because you know what? I changed. I used to swear, I used to cuss as a woman. I put him down. And men are not built like that. Men need to be uplifted. You have a responsibility as a woman, and I wasn't doing a lot of that,
Okay.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that realizing where I went wrong, realizing what underlying issues there was in his life, and even in my ex-boyfriend,
Mm-hmm.
we have great communication, but he still did me wrong. And but within those conversations, I understood who he was as a person and what was bothering him. So that's why I was able to come to peace with certain things with them and still have love. They can call me right now and need something, and I will drop it and still do it for them, regardless of the situation. And it's because I totally understand where they were coming from, what was going on in their life. And I haven't forgiven them for them. I forgive them for me because I don't want to be carrying burdens on my shoulder.
I love that. So it seems like starting with self and worrying about you and
Mhm.
what you're responsible of and what you can change helped you forgive and love everybody else.
Yeah. And can I tell you, over the last, I would say maybe over the last 2 months,
Hmm.
I started doing things differently. I think as I was approaching 43, I was looking back into my journals and looking back at things that I've written. And I realized that I was still not complaining, but still I was like stuck in certain situations.
I see.
And and a lot of them were repetitive behaviors that I was that I kept doing, right? And I realized that when I set goals or when I decide to do something, I never really was consistent with it. I wasn't really carrying it out. I would probably do it for 1 or 2 weeks
Okay.
and think that I'm being consistent. But I've been so consistent with a couple of things that I've tried to implement in my life for the last 2 months. And I started off really small. And by starting off with these two little things, it has led to bigger things happen in my life. And I realized the one thing that I want in life for me personally is humility. And being humble over the last couple of months, whether it be not just in my relationship with my exes, in what's happening in my life, it has just brought so much calmness to me and so much clarity that I've been coming. I'm a little more proud of myself. I'm proud of where I'm going and where I'm at. And humility, I don't is something that is so rare in this world because again, it's something that is hard to do it. We always want to go on social media and talk about where we're going, where we've been, where this is something you never see anyone putting out their dirty laundry, right?
Hmm.
They're not going to do that. And it's not just about putting out your dirty laundry, it's just being about being authentic. Like there's days like okay, when I got up this morning, my eyes were so puffy and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I have this thing with Jay today. I'm gonna go on camera looking like this. I'm like, this is this is like my first video. I've always seen podcasts. It's like my first,
Uh-huh.
but I'm like, you know what, church, whatever you know what? You're talking about realness, and this is you in your raw,
Mhm.
authentic form, right? So I'm like, no foundation is gonna help you right now, chick, but it's all right. So it's just be humble.
Right, right. And no worries here. There's definitely never any judgment here on Bite the Bullet. And
No, it's fine.
I can tell you that as a friend, yo, you flawless, my friend. You're gorgeous. So
Girl,
no worries.
you know what? Listen, God makes someone for everyone, okay? So
Exactly.
there's people out there who thinks that I'm the bomb right now, and then some people look at
Uh-huh.
me, girl, you need help. So you know what? It's to each its own.
I have a very close personal friend, and he always reminds me that whether you do right or whether you do wrong, somebody is going to have an opinion
I
about
think
it.
everyone. Yeah.
So that is definitely has become my mantra. And before we switch gears, I want to ask something that I read off in your intro cards is that you have 3 kids, and your 3 kids happen to be a big motivation for you. And if I can look back at the cards for a second and quote that your main focus in life right now is to be the best example for them so they can be better human beings.
Mhm.
Why is that so important for you?
Oh, I think I'm gonna cry for this. No, when it comes to my kids, I get really touchy.
Yeah.
one thing I've always said to my kids is that, always strive to be the best that you can be, especially
Absolutely.
as citizens in your communities as well,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I just look back at a lot of the mistakes and a lot of the decisions that I've made in my life.
Okay.
And your children, they they imitate, they look at you, and they repeat things that you do in life.
Yeah.
And my daughter, she's 22 years old. And one of the things that I never wanted for her was to go through some of the things that I went through. She witnessed the abusive relationship with me and her dad. You know, I was in a relationship with him where the way he spoke to me and the way I spoke to him, I would never want a woman to speak to any of my sons like that, and I would never want a man to speak to any of my daughter like that, right?
Hmm.
So it's really important to me to let them know how much mistakes I've made and to learn from my mistakes, but they also need to make their own mistakes. And by doing the podcast and being real and even being real with them and being real with my family and with friends,
Hmm.
um and even, you know what, a lot of people don't do this. They don't listen to their children's advice. They think, oh, they're kids, they don't know what the hell
Right.
they're talking about. But really and truly, your kids probably know you better than anyone else because they've seen your ugly side, they've seen your good side. So
Hmm.
when my children say, mom, you do you, or mom, why are you talking to this person still, or mom, why are you doing this, I take a step back and I listen. Some people say, why are you taking advice from your kids? But my kids know me better than anyone else. So it's really important to me that I do what I think is best for me, be
Hmm.
authentic within myself and for other people, so my kids don't have to be fake and they can be themselves.
I love that. I love that. And you remind me of a conversation I had with a older gentleman who was wise beyond his years. And I was having issues with my daughter, who happened to be 2, 3 at the time, something like that. But she was always throwing tantrums, right? Particularly every time we'd have to leave the park. And I was venting to him, and he was just like, "Why do you just snatch her from the park?" And I'm like, "Because it's time to go." And he's like, she's a little adult. Do you want someone to just snatch you
Like
when
that.
you're in the middle of something or when you're doing something you really love? No, you wouldn't. So he was like, how about you give her, I don't know, a 5-minute warning and then stick to the warning, or excuse me, like give her a 10-minute warning,
Okay.
count it down.
Mhm.
And then at the end of it, that's when you go.
Mhm.
And I was like, you know what? That makes sense. So I
Mhm.
tried it. The first time we had a little resistance, but it worked. It was definitely better than it had been. And then from then on out to this day, when me and my kids, my wife, whenever we're out and we have somewhere to go, or excuse me, we're about to leave. Hey kids, 5 minutes. Okay. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, we're out. So it's all about listening and respecting them and realizing that they're little people too. Like they're no
And
different than you. They just haven't been able to experience or express everything yet.
and even as they get older too, and I'll tell you, so being in the relationship with their dad,
Hmm.
I was so used to the yelling. I told you we couldn't talk
Yeah.
to each other. It was just
Hmm.
constant yelling.
Yeah.
So then I would be yelling at my kids too, right? And as they got older, like even my daughter and my son, they're like, "Mom, why are you yelling at me? I'm right here." Or if I started to raise my voice, like after I left him, because after I left him,
Yeah.
I was working on myself, and the swearing and the yelling was two things that I put as priority because I never used to swear in my life. It was only after in this relationship, after quite a few years, I started doing it, and I never felt ladylike. I didn't feel like people would like I used to look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, how could you look like this and these things are coming out of your mouth, right?
Oh, yeah.
And just hearing my kids say to me, "Mom, why are you talking to me like that?" It kind of brought me down. And even with my ex-boyfriend, when I started the relationship with him, every time we would have a conversation or we would have a was then that's the reason why I love that relationship is because we can communicate. He would say to me, Trish, we don't need to yell at each other. We don't need and as much as that relationship was a hard relationship to my with my ex-boyfriend, I learned a lot about myself and I took away so much good from it. So my kids, um, they've humbled me in a way that they've come to they're able to show me that, you know what, yes, you are the parent, but you're not perfect, and I've accepted that because I want to be better for them. And
Mhm.
I've allowed my kids to tell me, you know, what I do to hurt them, what can I do to be a better mother to them. And by doing that, my kids come to me and talk to me about almost anything, and I love that because I know growing up in the Caribbean, there's so many of us and so many kids that I know, even some of my daughter's friends and stuff like that, they would talk to me and not talk to their parents about certain things, right? And
Yeah.
I love that I know a lot of what's going on in my kids' life.
Well, it sounds like you got rid of ego because I know there are a lot of parents out there is that this is my way, my way or the highway, and that's the only option you got. So it sounds like you have definitely gotten rid of the ego.
I don't
And
think it's just about the ego too. I think it's
mhm,
about just being scared. You know, we talk about that inner shell and we're trying to pretend to be someone. It's like I don't need to pretend to be anyone in front of my kids as well because they know me, right?
mhm.
They know when I'm bullshitting them.
Well, that's hard because like I find it, and it's funny because I don't think I do it so much with my daughter, but I find it that I do it a lot with my son because he'll want to do something like case in point, like right, he got a telescope for Christmas.
Mhm,
And I'm familiar with how to use the telescope, but I'm not like perfect with it, you know?
mhm,
And he's been dying to go out and use it. And rightly so. Like he got it for Christmas. He wants to use it. So I get that. But for one, it's cold. And anyone who knows me knows I hate the cold. And
we can be brothers and sisters. I live in Canada, okay?
oh, I'm
I live
so
in Toronto, and every year, oh,
I feel you, true. I feel you like, oh man, the warm weather. But so he wants to do this, and it's been cold out, and plus it's been a little rainy, and there's a lot of clouds.
mhm,
So there has been legit reasons why, but at the same time, inside, I'm like,
I
I
don't
don't really know how to use this thing. How do I be the perfect parent? He like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's all these thoughts
mhm.
of presenting this perfect,
Yep,
know everything adult, and it's like, let him see you mess up. So we go out there, you don't know how to use it. Okay, big deal. He's not gonna think any less of you.
mhm.
So finally, yesterday, we took it out and we actually got to saw the moon. And I'm kind of glad we did because through this telescope, I'm pretty sure we saw the flag. I'm pretty sure that's what we saw. No, it's not that powerful. I'm joking. But like, it was a pretty good picture. And
Yeah,
we had a very awesome moment. And I'm glad
so
I
good.
finally came out that shell and did that. So it was great.
Yeah.
But I think now might be a perfect time to transition to the bite the bullet question. So anybody watching or anybody who has seen the show knows these questions. If you haven't seen the show, my question is, why haven't you? Where have you been? And start tuning in. Okay. That's my first. So the second thing is Trish, she has not seen these questions. She has no clue what's coming her way. And I'm sure she is quaking in her boots right now. No? Okay. All right, here we go. What motivates you to do what you do? And I think we kind of touched on that a little bit earlier.
Definitely it's my kids, but it's also the feedback that I'm getting from a lot of my listeners. Um, knowing that I can help, or knowing that I have helped one person, because you know I get some really positive feedback. Just that alone really motivates me to keep going. Just that alone.
I love it. I love it. What is one core myth about you that you want to debunk?
That I'm strong. Um, I've heard it.
Hmm.
I've heard it from my entire life that, oh my God, you're so strong, because I've been through some shit, Jay. I've been through
Yeah.
some shit.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I'm a strong woman, yes, because I've been through a lot and I'm sitting here to talk about it.
Uh-huh.
But I'm very vulnerable. I am there. I have my weak moments. Don't let this hard shell fool you. And yeah, and you know what? I think a lot of people think, oh, I speak my mind. You know, a lot of people
Uh-huh.
say, oh, she has a mouth on her and all that. Yeah, I think the saying is what the bark is harder than the bite or something
Oh
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that.
The bark is louder than the bite or strong.
Something
But
like that,
yes,
right?
yeah.
But, you know, I was telling my daughter the other day, you know, my dad called me on my birthday and he said, you're so strong. You've been through so much. You're the strongest out of all the kids. And I'm like, it kind of bothered me when he said that because I don't think a lot of people understand my vulnerability and understand that there's days and nights like I would be crying because of what I'm going through. And I don't think that being vulnerable and weak is something bad. I think that it makes you human. And yes, you can stand proud and say, yes, I'm strong and I've been through this and I've been through that, but be real about it. It
Mm-hmm.
took a lot of tears. It took a
Yeah.
lot of self doubt. It took so much to get to where I'm at. And as long as people know that I'm not just a smiley face and I've been through so much shit, they know that I was crying 2 hours ago or I had a bad night. And okay, for example, if you look at my podcast and you
Mm-hmm.
look at my social media, there's weeks and months I go without posting anything. And the reason that is because there are times when I don't feel it. And I made a promise to myself that I'm only going to do a podcast and I'm only going to post pictures and post stuff when I can be authentic, when I really feel what I'm putting out there. I'm not going to post every week because social media says you need to post every week to get followers. I'm going to post when I know that what I'm going to talk about is real, when I feel it, and
Mm-hmm.
when I know that I'm putting out positivity and I'm being real. I don't want to be fake. I'm not going to
Right.
put, oh, happy Monday, y'all. And I really and truly, I'm messed up right now. I'm not going to do that.
Oh, I like. I'm really surprised by your answer, but I love that. I love what you're saying. Yeah, because it's funny enough. The strongest people tend to need the most love because people think, "Oh, you're strong. I don't need to check on them. They got it." And we're like, "No, you need to still go check on the strong people."
Oh, definitely. Sometimes the strongest people is the people who really need that hug, or it
Yeah.
just yeah.
Hmm. Definitely. What's one thing you wish you had known when you began your podcast?
One thing I wish I had known.
Yep.
The thing is that doing my podcast, I've done everything from scratch. So everything from buying a mic to how to edit to
Yeah.
everything. One thing I wish I had known was how to really get out there, and I wanna be able. When I started my podcast, it was really geared a lot towards women,
Hmm.
and doing the podcast, I realized that men need these conversations just as much as women need it.
Right.
So that's why I'm changing. Season 2 of my podcast is changing a little bit more, where I'm incorporating a lot more men and talking about men's emotions and stuff like that, instead of it
Mhm.
just being about women. Because you know what, we're intertwined, and
Right.
I it's not that I wish I could have done it differently. I think it's a growing process. It's growth. It's a learning process. So this podcast has just really opened up so much for me in my mindset that I don't think I would change anything because I've learned so much.
Hmm. Oh, definitely. If you could have dinner with any three people, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
3 people. I would say number one would be Maya Angelou.
Oh,
Um, just her words, and just listening to her motivates and uplifts me.
right.
I just love that. Number two, Tupac.
Okay.
I just think he is just brilliant with his lyrics.
Uh huh.
I just think it would be a great dinner, great barbecue. I think we would have barbecue.
Yeah.
And third, my grandfather.
Oh,
My
why?
grandfather died when I was 14. And I think it's only like within the last maybe 5 or 6 days of his life that I really got to see him as who he really is, because he just shared certain moments with me that I will
Okay.
never forget. But I would like to know more about his history, his mom coming over as a indentured laborer to Trinidad as I just want to learn more about him, learn more about my ancestry. And he was a preacher in the church, but he also did different religious ceremonies. So I just don't think I know enough about him and about who he is because my son, my last son, his middle name is James.
Okay.
I dreamt a lot about my grandfather when I was pregnant with him, and I don't know why. And my son has a lot of his personalities.
Hmm.
That's the whistle, and that was my grandfather, right? And I just wish I knew more about him, or I could just have that intimacy with him, that
Oh,
conversation.
I understand that. I love all three of those because, oh, wow, definitely. What is something people would be surprised to know about you that they don't already know?
Well, I think just by looking at my TikTok and my Nona, I have such a goofy side that you would never know because I suppress it. If I'm
Yeah.
myself, I would do it. But oh my God, I think I love TikTok now because I get to be goofy on TikTok.
Well, see, the funny thing now that you say you got a TikTok, I'm gonna have to follow you now. I'm gonna have to make sure that I follow you because, like,
I
my
just,
daughter introduced TikTok to me, and it's taken over my world. So yeah, I
my
love.
kids, like my son, I did a song for him because he loves this rapper called NBA Youngboy,
Okay.
and we hate it, but I did this song and I'm like, I did it for you though. Like I was home by myself and it's like, what do you, okay, I've dedicated my whole life to my kids. When they're not around, what the hell do I do? You just be you, right? So I'm here doing TikToks and but that's just who I am. And
Yeah.
the thing is that I think my whole life, like, because of work and because of I tried to be this prim and proper person, but really and truly, I'm this big ass goof clown, and
Hmm.
I'm happy that that's who I want to be, and that's who I
Right.
am.
And see, like, don't get me wrong, like, I never thought you were like a big goofy clown,
It's
but but I like the few conversations I've had to have with you.
yeah.
I've always thought you were might be like a fun. I don't know if silly would be the word, but I thought you might be like one of those fun, cool people. Like if you are at a house and there's only like 4 or 5 of your friends just chilling,
Mhm.
I assumed you would be the funny one or one of the funny ones, right?
Definitely.
That's what my mind was.
And if you don't laugh, I'll laugh at my own jokes, and that will make you laugh.
Yes, I agree with your earlier statement. Yo, I think we're brother and sister. I think like somehow we were separated. What's one thing you failed at, and what did you learn?
Hmm. See, I'm gonna give this answer, and people are probably gonna knock me. I think I failed at being a parent, but
Hmm.
I'm now getting there. And the reason why I say I think I failed at being a parent is because
Okay.
I don't think I gave my children the childhood that they should have had where they have great memories. They have memories of a mom and dad continuously fighting. I'm going to start crying. They have memories of a mom and dad continuously fighting.
Right.
And I hear them talk about it and it hurts. But I learned that it's never too late.
Ooh, 100%.
It's
Yeah.
never too late. And
Hmm.
even with my own parents, my mom just turned 65 last year. My mom told me when I was 12, 13 that she wished she never had me. She wanted to have an abortion. And my mom has never had a really my parents have never raised me. My mom doesn't have any maternal instincts for me,
Okay.
right?
Hmm.
But um she's coming around, like she calls me a little bit more now. We talk. I went to her 65th birthday. So it's never too late because you know what? At least I know that we're building a relationship. And when it
Right.
comes to my kids, we've actually, me and my daughter, we didn't talk for a couple years, almost or a few months, because we had a tumultuous relationship after I left her dad, because she was going through her own things, right?
Hmm.
And I think learning and seeing where I went wrong and admitting to them that I didn't do things right. And I think I stayed in the relationship with their dad for a lot of selfish reasons. It helped me to build that better relationship with them now. So it's never too late. So I think in the beginning I did feel as a parent. I'm still learning. I'm not perfect right now, but I think I've
Right.
gotten a lot better.
Well, I don't disagree with guests on the show just because of various different reasons. But in this particular situation, I mean, clearly, I've never met your kids. I don't know you personally, but just what I know of you, I don't think you failed as a parent for exactly what you just said. Like the fact that you're learning and you know
Mhm.
that it's a process and
Yeah.
that it's never too late. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think every parent has probably felt like they failed. Cause even right now, like my daughter, I know is mad at me legit because she's grounded. You know what I'm saying? So right now I am not her favorite person at
Yeah.
all. But it's funny how when you have to discipline and you know you're doing right by your kids,
Mhm.
you still feel this heartache of like, oh my God, I'm putting them through this. Or even like how you've mentioned before, back in the past, because of who you used to be, the best way you could love them was the best way you could love them, which wasn't the healthiest, but that's
Mhm.
what you knew at the time. But now
Yeah.
you're not that same person anymore. So I
But
don't.
I'd admit something to you. Back then, I knew what I was doing wasn't right.
Mm,
And I don't, and the thing is that back then I wasn't putting them first. I was
oh,
putting I and I would admit that because as a woman, and a lot of women do this, when
yeah.
in a relationship where a man is cheating on them,
Hmm.
like, women, they stay in a relationship a lot of the times because they want to prove that they're better than that other woman, or they don't want to give up the relationship because, oh, they might have the house. And that was me. I wanted to say, okay, I was better than that woman. She ain't gonna have my man. That
Yeah.
was, I was staying in the abusive relationship. I'll let him give me a black eye
Hmm.
because you know what, at least I know he's coming home and sleeping in the bed with me. I
Right.
wasn't putting my kids first. So that's where I would say I wasn't being a good parent,
Mm,
right? um I was young too. I had my daughter when she was 21, but that shouldn't be, you know what, I didn't have the guidance of my parents. I didn't have parents around to guide me and give me proper guidance. But learning all of this and admitting it to my children, and realizing how stupid I've been, um, it's really brought us closer. So that's why I say I feel like I failed as a parent back then because I didn't put them first.
okay.
I put myself, I put him first. I didn't put my kids first, and that's why I would say that. And it's hard for me to admit that, to be honest.
Mhm.
But I think we need to be real with ourselves, and we need to be real with others as well.
Oh, I agree with you completely. As I said, like I think every parent at one time or another definitely feels like they failed.
Yeah.
I know there's many times where parenting, we don't get a manual in the hospital. You know what I'm saying? So there's plenty of things that I know that I jacked up and I messed up, and I'm like, well, got to
And
scratch that up
you're
too,
going to. You're going to. So
right?
yeah, it's how
So
it's how we handle it after and how we deal with after is going to define those memories and define those moments and define who you are.
right. Me and my wife joke all the time, and we pray that our children are not stand-up comedians because we know we have given them ample fuel for their routines.
Oh,
But next question: what makes you feel inspired or like your best self?
honestly, I'm getting a lot of my inspiration from my faith.
Okay.
Um, every day when I wake up and I open my Bible app, or I I pray, like I'm just inspired to be a better person because of my faith. My faith has been the
I
one
love
thing
that. Yeah.
my faith has been the one thing that has been constant in my life. There's times when I wasn't praying every day or whatever, but I've never faltered in my faith. And when I look back, a lot of my hard times that I've gone through was because
Mhm.
of my faith. Now, a lot of people might not believe in the same God I believe in. They might not, they have different religions or different spirituality. But as long as you believe in something and you have faith in something, that's going to get you to that place that you need to be and want to be. And just discovering myself, and you know what, Jay? Really seeing who I am and knowing who I am in my heart motivates me to get
Mhm.
up each day and be good. Mm.
And see, I love that because I agree with you completely. Like, regardless of your religious base or what God you serve,
Yeah.
having faith gets us through so many different things. And particularly if you're consistent
Yeah.
with your faith.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that I've been so I started having my son, my 11-year-old, do the Bible app with in the night, like we'll do together, right?
Yeah.
It shows you how many streaks you have and how many days you've been. And he looked at me like, wow, mom. And he looked at his and he looked at mine. And I'm like, you know what? being consistent for all these months and weeks have really got me in such a good place that
Mm,
um, I feel good and it motivates me. And
right.
and as we talked about being humble, it's motivate me to be a more humble person.
I like that, and I'll admit here that like I don't read my Bible probably as much as I should, but I saw a commercial the other night that they have gotten James Earl Jones to read the Bible, and I was like, "Yo, I think they got me. They must have got me." So yeah,
That is that yeah.
right. It's the little things. It's the little things.
Yeah.
The next question: if you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it be and why?
My face, because I'm cute.
Oh yeah, I love that. I love that. Nice.
That's the first thing that came to my mind. I'm sorry.
No, no, so I love it though. I love it. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Trust me.
Actually, let me tell you, you know what? It would
Yo.
be a picture of me,
Uh-huh.
of me in a bathing suit because that's my number one security.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have stretch marks, and every single picture, I have stretch marks on my sides from since I was in my teenager, and
Yeah.
every single picture I see of women with swimsuits and stuff, they have the most perfect skin, and I
Mm-hmm.
never see anyone who looks like me. So I will have a jumbo ass billboard with me in a bathing suit, looking fine as hell, but showing my stretch marks.
And see, I love that. Just the fact that you're able to embrace your fear and say, you know what, if I could, that's what I would do. I would put my fear on there,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
that's dope. I love that. What advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a similar path as yours?
it's hard, and if you're not honest with yourself, you can't be honest with other people. And that's the that's I think that is the biggest hurdle that you would have to go is to be honest with yourself. And as I said before, you have to like yourself, not love. You have to like yourself, and as long as you like yourself and you're authentic, you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Mm, agreed. Agreed. What's the most important thing you've learned so far in your life, and why?
The most important thing I've learned in my life.
Hmm.
Hmm. Wow. To go with my gut. I second guess myself a lot.
Okay.
And I think it was my past relationship. Some people would tell me that I'm paranoid or you overthink things. But a lot of the times, my gut feeling is 100% correct. I mean, I honestly, my gut feeling is so good. I just wish I can get a gut feeling of the lottery numbers and I know I would win. That's just how good it is.
I love that. I love that. But no, I agree with you. I think anybody who has been in an unhealthy, toxic relationship definitely goes through that period where, you know what, second guessing themselves because they're just different things in the mind and psyche. And I can only really say that because I know that's how I was. The relationship I have with my parents isn't the best, wasn't the best, and definitely a lot
And,
of second guessing
and
myself.
it's not just the second guessing, it's
Yeah.
believe in your intuition.
Mm.
Believe that you're not, you know what, your mind, the mind is so powerful. It can make you believe things, but you know what? If gut and your mind is telling you something, you know what? Majority of the time, that's how it is. Listen to yourself. Don't think you're crazy.
Right. I'll never forget that Brian McKnight has this song that there's a lyric in it that says, I'm sorry for all the times I'd lied to you, even when you knew it was true.
Oh,
Right.
me
And I remember because I'm a huge Brian McKnight fan. So I remember singing that, but I
too.
never understood it because I was like, why would he apologize? Or how could he apologize for something? Like, if he lied, how you know it was true? My wife wasn't my wife at the time. She was my girlfriend. She looked at me. She was like, a lot of times we know you're lying, but the fact that we love you, we try to overlook it.
And you know what, Jay? What I want to say to that,
Yeah.
women, to the women out there, you don't always have to point out to a man when he's lying or when he's wrong. And that is our job. And the reason it is because men's egos, they need to, it's not that it's an ego filler, but that's also you humbling yourself. That
Right.
is also you being humble. And you know what? You don't always have to point that out to someone that they're lying or that as long as you know the truth, you can work with that,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Hmm. Great. What, in your opinion, is the best tip for making the world a better place?
I think that there's too much greed in this world. Too much
No
greed.
doubt.
There's to me, why are there people in this world that are multi-billion trillionaires, but there's people that are hungry?
One of my goals in life is to be financially stable and to be very financially well off, right?
Mhm.
But I have never fathomed myself to be a trillionaire, billionaire, because if I'm ever blessed with that much money, I can guarantee you now, this is live, this is recorded. Please, someone show this back later in my life if I ever get to this point. That money will be donated to a lot of people who need it. Because I trust me, I don't need that money.
I could never
Most definitely.
understand why a family of 3 needs to live in a house with 12 or 15 bedrooms and 8 bathrooms. Why? When there's people who don't even have like, I guess maybe because of how I was brought up and I wasn't brought up in that luxury, but still,
Right.
when you think about it, it's like, that saying that common sense is not very common?
Yeah.
To me, that is common sense. You're sitting in your bank.
Hmm.
I'm looking at R&B singers, rappers.
Yeah.
I saw, I think it was on Instagram at 50 Cents a long time ago, saying he had so much money he didn't know what to do, so he wrapped his Ferrari or his car the same pattern as his shirt. And I look and I sat back and I'm like, you have so much money that you don't know what to do. Yet I know people or places that people are hungry?
Well, to be fair to all those people who do have that kind of money, if you're watching my show, I understand that a lot of times once you get to a certain tax bracket, particularly in the States, I can't talk anywhere else in the world, but in the
Mhm.
States, if you go over a certain tax bracket, you get penalized if you're not able to justify where your money is going in a legal fashion. So if you're just giving money to certain causes or even to certain people, you'll start getting penalized because it's not justified by our tax code, which is a sham and shouldn't be that way.
Yeah,
So I understand. And even when people live in these luxurious houses, I have no judgment against these people because I know everybody has different dreams, everybody has different wants. Me personally, I would love a big house, but every room would have a purpose. Like I wouldn't just have a room just to have a room. Like it'll probably be like my art studio, and then I probably have a place for like
mhm.
this, and everything would have a purpose. But I can't see having a house, like you said, 3 people living in my house, 15 rooms, 20 bathrooms. Yeah, that is just I don't understand that, but
When I
that's me.
when I think about a big house, I think about how much cleaning I would have to do, and then my kids would say, "But mom, you can hire people to clean." But I'm so OCD that I wouldn't like how you clean. Like, I probably have to go back and clean. So, why am I putting myself through that, you know?
Right, right.
Anyway.
Oh man. Um, if you could turn back time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her?
Oh my lord, that would be a conversation.
Mm,
What would I tell her?
mhm,
Honestly, it would have to be about my kids. I would tell her, "When you have kids,
mm.
remember to put them first and nothing else."
Okay.
Because that has been I don't think it's a regret, I think it's my biggest life lesson,
Hmm.
um, but I would wanna go back and tell her that,
I get that. I understand that.
because I know for a fact that if I had done that in the beginning, it would have avoided a lot of pain.
Okay. I
But
get
you
that.
know what? But then I look back to and I said, "If I didn't go through all of that, would I be here sitting with you talking to you right now?"
Yeah, it's funny when you look back at the things that we kind of like. Can I change that? Should I change that if I could? But then
Mhm.
you're like, well, that would make me different.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be the same person. So we only have a few questions left. They get harder. Are you ready, Trish?
yeah.
What are you afraid of?
What am I afraid of?
What are you afraid of?
I I think okay, putting myself out there. And awesome, as much as that I'm trying to be real and authentic. Remember I told you that doing videos and stuff like that, I
Right.
really was good. Okay. So I've always been scared of being judged and putting myself out there because I would always wonder, what are people thinking about me and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I, my podcast didn't really help me with that because my podcast was just more or less my voice. People weren't
Right.
seeing my vulnerability. But me trying to do these videos and go on YouTube and stuff like that now and try to be comfortable, it's getting out of that comfort zone. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, I can't be talking about being real and being authentic, and I'm scared to go in front of the camera for people to see my vulnerability.
That's deep.
Yeah, because
Okay.
as I told you, that you can see my expressions and everything on my face. It's really hard to hide. So I'm not a very good poker player, and like honestly, if I have a problem with you, I would be smiling, but you would see that I have a problem with you. Like that's just how bad it is, right? So I think I have, and that's I'm working on that. So you might see on my social media, and that's why I like TikTok. Remember, I told you like I
Right.
can be my goofy self, but when I want to
Uh-huh.
feel and talk, it's
Yeah.
hard for me. So I'm trying to get comfortable with it, and that's been my biggest fear is being vulnerable, putting myself out there for people to see me.
Mm-hmm.
See me, yeah.
Okay. I like that. I respect that. So, if in 150 years science fails to save us all, Trish, and the only thing that is left is a book about your life, what would the title be and what would the back say?
What would the title be?
And what would the back say?
My word.
Is that the title?
I think the back would say "kiss my ass." Mm,
Oh my God.
no, that's the first thing that came because you know what? It,
Uh,
I used to have this saying. This is so wrong. I'm gonna say that I used to tell my cousins this. If I die,
mhm.
just put me face down so that everyone can kiss my ass in the casket. I s- no, but that's the first thing that came to my mind. Anyways,
Dude, I love it. I love it so much. I love it. But you know what's funny though? I go in the bookstore, like my wife knows, like I'm one of those people that I get books that and when I haven't finished other books yet. So like I have like piles of books back there that I
yeah,
need to read. But if I was touring the bookstore and I came across a book that said "My Word," had your picture, and then on the back it just said "Kiss My Ass," I can tell you that I'd probably buy that book. I kid you not. Just because I got curious. I'm like, yo, I gotta read. This is funny to me. I gotta read that. So definitely, I love that one. I love that one. Next question. What are the best resources that have helped you along the way? Now, resources can be websites,
oh
people,
yeah.
just anything that's helped you along the way.
You know what? The best resources, and I will tell people,
Yeah.
um, coaches and counselors.
Mhm.
You have to go through them like you go through M&Ms or chocolate. You not the first one, it's not the second. It took me like I think 12 different counselors to get to someone who I can talk to. So counselors and coaches are really good. And the willpower to want to be better made me look up articles, read, and actually talk to people. You know what? Talking to people who are going through similar circumstances. There's
Mhm.
so many groups. There's so many meetups. There's so many, and even though we're in quarantine or we have this COVID thing going on, there's so many online programs. There's so many online uh, seminars that you can attend. And
Mhm.
where there's a will, there's a way. There's so in the age that we live in with the amount of technology that we have, there's
Mhm.
so many resources, so many articles. I used to look up. Okay, I'm going to tell you something deep. There was a
Okay.
point in my life where it was really dark, and I was contemplating suicide. Okay,
Mhm.
I just didn't want to be here anymore, and I went on and I researched suicide. And I saw that I think they said 3 out of 5 children who have parents who commit suicide themselves. Okay,
I didn't know that. Okay.
I think it was something like that.
Mhm.
That I stopped thinking about it right away. I'm like, your life is not that bad that you need to put your kids through this, right? So
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, Knowing and talking about it, and and researching the way you feel, and reading books. I read a lot of self-help books. Eckhart Tolle, I love his books. I don't know if you've ever read any of his books.
Yeah.
Um, they're so good. Um, and honestly, the Bible. I cannot
Hmm.
tell you how many times I get up, like even today, the Bible app had a verse that popped up and it just resonated with me and resonated with what I was going through. My latest podcast that came out today was just me in my feelings. I think it was on either Saturday or Sunday. And
Hmm.
I spoke about the verse that came on that day. So we have a lot of resources. Don't think that there's, and you know what? Podcasts. There's so many podcasts to listen
Yeah.
to, right?
Hmm.
Um, Music. Oh my God. Music. Let me tell you, music can either get me crying or get me in a hype mood. Okay. So,
Agreed. Same here. Same here.
right? So that's it for me.
Oh, I definitely agree with all those. So we're down to the last question, and I always like to save the best and the hardest for last.
Oh wow.
Where can our listeners connect with Strong Talk online?
So I would say the best place to go is on my website, which is www.trish-strongtalk.com. So all the links to my podcast and social media is on there. But I am on Facebook, on there as Trish Nancoo or Strong Talk. I'm on Instagram as Strong Talk, but the O is a zero. And my podcast is on Apple. It's on Spotify. It's on Stitcher, and I forgot the last one. For Google, Google Podcast. So, my email is strongtalk101@gmail.com. I love to hear feedback for the show because that's the only way that I'll get better. Um, if you have an idea for something that you want to hear, or questions, because sometimes I'm not as detailed as people want me to be in some of the podcasts. And I mean, I guess they just want to know my business. I don't know. But
No, I can relate. I can relate to that. Yeah.
they're like, can you be a little more specific? I'm like, how much more specific do you need me to go? But I like to have those one-on-ones too as well.
Uh-huh.
If you want to be a guest as on the show too, I mean, just reach out to me and we can have a conversation.
100%. So everyone watching now or you're watching later, please make sure that you listen to Strong Talk and you connect with Trish. Again,
I
she's
appreciate it.
such an awesome person, and the show, I'm telling you, is going to blow you away. There's so much knowledge there, so much insightfulness, and just take a peek.
Hi.
So Trish, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for your time, and I want to be respectful of it. So before I let you go, are there any words of wisdom or just anything you'd like to share with the audience before I officially let you go?
Just be kind. That's how
Be
I
kind.
be kind.
See, don't y'all just love her? Oh my God. Oh, I love it. This has been Bite the Bullet. I'm your host, Jay Reese, and we will catch you all later.
Bye.
See ya.